being a day unit, we would be assigned 3 a.m. to 5 p.m. as an on-call, where any homicides or death investigations that occur within the city, we would be responding and responsible for those cases. During your next rotation, you have the on-call responsibility for 2 days.
At 3 o'clock a.m.?
Yes.
And were you going to be on call until 5 o'clock p.m. on that same date?
Yes, we were.
Did you receive some type of notification as you were on your way to headquarters from the Suffolk County Courthouse?
Yes.
What time was that notification at?
I believe it was about 4:55 p.m.
Just before your on-call responsibilities would have ended?
Yes.
Okay. What was the nature of the call that you received about 4:55 p.m. on that day?
The call was for a found body in the area of Enneking Parkway and East Boundary Road.
Okay. And when you got that call, where were you, sir?
I was at the corner of Tremont and Ruggles Street, just outside of police headquarters.
And after, when you received the call, did you have any familiarity with that area? What's located out there?
Stony Brook Reservation.
Okay. After you received this notification for a found body, did you have any contact, just yes or no, with your supervisor, Sergeant Paul McLaughlin?
Yes.
Okay. Did you wind up responding to the area where the call came in for?
Yes.
How long did it take you to get there?
Approximately 20 minutes.
Okay. And as far as your response there, you wound up going over alone?
Yes.
In which direction did you come in from, sir?
I came in from Gordon Ave, River Street to Gordon Ave, and on to Enneking Parkway.
And was there a particular area that you wound up stopping your car at?
Yes, the first location I stopped was just opposite the softball fields on Enneking Parkway, as there was a marked unit situated there with its lights on.
Did you park on the road?
I did.
Who did you wind up meeting there?
Myself and Detective Cecil met at that location.
And you had been working all day up to that point?
Yes.
And approximately what time was it now that you had arrived on Enneking Parkway at the Stony Brook Reservation?
Approximately 5:15, 5:20.
Do you recall what the weather was like that day?
It was torrential downpours.
Okay, steady or periodic?
It had been periodic throughout the day. By the time we arrived on scene, it was steady for a period of time.
Who did you speak with or meet with immediately once you first got there?
When I first got there, I was directed by the officer manning that position that there was a path leading into the location where the body had been found.
And let me ask you this. Was ultimately you wound up on Bold North Path?
Yes.
As far as the area itself, the Stony Brook Reservation that we'll get to in a minute, was the general area secured?
Yes.
Had Enneking Parkway been shut down from Gordon Ave all the way to the next four-way intersection at that point?
Not at the time of my arrival, no.
Okay. Was it at some point?
Yes, it was.
Just generally right now, Detective Sheehan, how long was it before or after your arrival? How much time passed after you got there before you wound up on Bold North Path?
5 minutes.
And who did you go there with?
After attempting to enter Bold North from Enneking Parkway and being unable to pass, Detective Cecil and I then went to the parking area, which is a main entrance for Stony Brook Reservation, at which point we met with Sergeant Detective McLaughlin and Superintendent Chief Daniel Linsky.
And were there any members from the state police there?
There were state police, there were Boston police, and there were personnel from the DCR.
And at some point, was it established that the Boston Police Homicide Unit would retain jurisdiction of this matter?
Yes.
And just yes or no, did that have anything to do with the events that I had asked you about earlier in the day, the missing persons report and the arson of a motor vehicle?
Yes, it did.
Were those already being actively investigated by the Boston Police Department?
Yes.
Just generally, I have up on the easel here, sir, exhibit number 34. Do you recognize what's depicted generally here?
I do, yes.
And what do you see there?
It's photographs from the parking lot area that previously mentioned on Enneking Parkway and entering into the Stony Brook Reservation.
Okay. Who did you wind up going into that area with initially?
Initially, as I stated, Sergeant Detective Paul McLaughlin, and we met Superintendent Chief Linsky. After a brief conversation with him, Detective Cecil and I then proceeded up that paved path.
And did you head into the direction of Bold Knot Path?
Yes.
And where was Sergeant McLaughlin at the time?
He was still back speaking with the superintendent at that point.
And if you know, did that have anything to do with the jurisdiction issue?
I don't know what that conversation was about.
Showing you what's been marked exhibit number 35 that's now on the easel. Do you recognize those 5 photographs, sir?
I do, yes.
And generally, what's depicted in the 5 photographs you see there?
Where the paved pathway from the parking lot turns into Bold Knot Path.
Okay. Now, as you walked in the direction of Bold Knot Path, on the first paved path, were you walking along, toward, or away from Enneking Parkway?
Almost parallel to Enneking Parkway.
And by that, I'm talking the first path that goes, you turn to the right, and then where does it turn after you turn right, the paved path?
It would turn right onto the pathway that you see there, which was Bold Knot Path.
But before you get to Bold Knot, fair to say that that path, the paved path, turns up to the left a little bit?
The path goes up to the left, yes.
Okay. And at the point, I'll ask a better question. At the point the path turns up to the left, the paved path, is that going parallel or away from Enneking Parkway?
Somewhat away from Enneking Parkway at that point.
In Bold Knob, describe that area once you reached it.
It was hard-packed dirt with some rock outcroppings, a lot of vegetation.
And as far as Bold Knob itself, was it clearly marked?
Yes.
And I just want to show you this particular photograph, sir, and ask you if you recognize what I'm placing in front of you here.
Yes.
And what do you see there, sir?
It's a sign marking Bold Knot Path, too.
Okay. And did you see that sign, this particular sign, when you arrived on July 23rd of 2013?
Yes, I did.
May this be marked as the next numbered exhibit, Your Honor?
Yes.
Exhibit 47 so marked, Your Honor.
Were there any other representatives from specialized units from the Boston Police Department on scene when you got there?
When I first arrived, no.
Okay. Did some arrive after you got there?
Yes.
And what specialized units arrived?
Members of the Crime Scene Response Unit
Who else?
and members of the Boston Police Crime Lab.
Okay. And to your knowledge, did anyone from the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner arrive?
That was after I had departed, but yes,
Okay. You are aware of that?
I am.
The path that you took to Bold Knob, it was with Detective Cecil?
Up to the entrance of Bold Knob, yes.
And then, did you go down Bold Knob path?
No, we met with Al Balestra, who's a trooper with the assigned to the Mass State Police. We were briefed by him as to what information he had at that point. We awaited the arrival of Sergeant Detective McLaughlin, at which point the three of us proceeded down Bold Knob.
And directing your attention to what's been marked exhibit number 35 in this case, Detective Sheehan, I want to direct your attention, just start from the upper right-hand photograph and go clockwise till you come to the middle. Do you recognize what's depicted in the 5 photographs?
I do, yes.
And what do you see there?
Bold Knob Path.
Okay. Directing your attention to the middle photograph, to this area right here. Can you see it okay from the stand?
Yes.
And what's at the end of the pointer right here?
The open space you're referring to, or the trees?
No, this colored item right here.
There's a blue tent right at the edge of the trees.
When you arrived, was the blue tent, was it there? Was it set up in place?
No, it was not.
Who made arrangements for that?
The members of the Crime Scene Response Unit brought one tent. Additionally, personnel from DCR provided a second, smaller tent. And when we had all those tents, we put them up to preserve the scene as best as possible.
Okay. And what was that in response to?
The rains.
And it was continuing to rain?
It was, yes.
And just showing you for a moment exhibit number 33, with the Court's permission, may the witness step down, Your Honor?
Yes.
Do you recognize what I have up on the board there?
Yes.
On the easel? Excuse me.
Yes.
What do you see there, sir? starting with the left-hand side.
These are aerial photographs of the area of Enneking Parkway. That's the parking lot where we entered into Enneking Parkway. This is softball fields, Smithfield Road.
And I just want to focus on the left-hand side. When you say the entrance to Stony Brook Reservation, you were referring to the left-hand photograph of exhibit number 35, correct?
Yes.
Now, directing your attention to the bottom right photograph of the same exhibit, I asked you some questions a couple of minutes ago, and you said something about a blue tent or a blue canopy.
Yes.
Is that depicted anywhere in the bottom right-hand photograph?
It is.
And could you just point out for the jury where? And is that an aerial shot of Bold Knot Path that was taken after July 23rd of 2013?
Yes.
You've seen that photograph, the sequence of 3 photographs before?
I have, yes.
And just generally explain the circumstances under which these photographs were taken.
Myself and Police Officer Chris Krager, assisted by the Mass State Police Air Wing, went out and took aerial photographs of this area and other areas throughout the city.
Now, directing your attention to the left-hand side, the left-hand photograph of exhibit number 35, do you see a tree canopy here?
Yes.
Can you depict or strike that? Can you see anywhere on the left-hand photograph of exhibit 35 blue tent?
No.
On the bottom right photograph, is there what appears to be an opening that's consistent with the area of Bold Knot Path where you can see the top of the blue tent?
Yes.
And lastly, directing your attention to the top right photograph, can you see the top of the blue tent anywhere there, sir?
Yes, you can.
And just point it out if you would for the jury, please. Thank you. You can resume the stand. You spent some time on Bold Knot Path that day, sir?
Yes.
You had said a moment ago that some other units from the Boston Police Department arrived that would include crime scene response.
Yes.
What is one of the functions of the crime scene response unit at a scene like this?
To document a scene through photographic and video evidence, to mark and identify items of evidence and collection of evidence.
And the incident itself was classified as one type of investigation upon the point of your arrival on July 23rd, 2013, along with Sergeant McLaughlin and the other member of your squad.
At that point, it was a homicide investigation.
You had mentioned someone else, Detective Joseph Keaveney.
Yes.
Did he wind up responding on that particular date?
No, he was on vacation that week.
And just showing you for a moment what's been marked exhibit number 47. Is that the signage that was there right at the entrance of Bold Knot Path?
Yes.
At some point you proceeded down the path, sir?
Yes.
And just describe what observations you were making as you proceeded from the paved area down onto Bold Knot Path, which was unpaved.
First observations I was attempting to make was of any areas of potential evidence, foot impressions, items, discarded items.
Did you see anything like that?
When I initially began down the path, no.
What were the lighting conditions like going forward from after your arrival, sometime after 5 o'clock p.m. on that day?
Due to the rains, initially it wasn't well lit, but as the rains cleared, it became a little bit brighter for a period of time.
Okay. And after that, was it closing in on nightfall?
Yes.
Were any attempts made to document or memorialize the scene initially?
Yes.
And what attempts were those, sir?
Officer Michael Conley of the Crime Scene Response Unit was asked to take several series of photographs to get initial documentation in the interest of time and due to the lighting.
Before we get to those photographs, sir, Tell the jury what observations you made as you reached where later that blue tent was set up.
I observed a white female who was later identified as Amy Lord in the middle of the pathway. I observed a orange sneaker off to the left of the pathway, just a short distance away from Miss Lord's body. I observed what appeared to be a black yoga-style pants, fitted workout pants wrapped around the right leg, a purple sock on her left foot, a thin gold necklace around her neck.
And as far as those observations go, those are physical items, correct?
Yes.
Did you note any obvious signs of injury to her body?
Yes.
And what did you note, at least initially, upon your arrival there?
I noticed bruising and swelling around her, both of her eyes. I noticed multiple stab wounds around her neck, torso, and midsection.
And were those later photographed, sir?
Yes.
Now, at the time you arrived, back then in 2013, did you have a phone?
Yes.
Were you able to receive email on the phone?
Yes.
Relative to your role in this investigation at the time of your arrival, did you have any surveillance stills from area banks relative to this investigation?
At the time of my arrival, I did not have them in my email. I had viewed them. Superintendent-in-Chief Linsky had shown us several video stills from bank surveillance prior to entering Bold Knot Path.
And did one of those include a video still or a surveillance still from the Sovereign Bank in Uplands Corner?
Yes.
And did you also have one from the Metro Credit Union Bank on Massachusetts Avenue in Boston?
At that point?
Yes.
Yes.
In asking you this, the surveillance stills that you had shortly after you arrived on July 23rd of 2013 at the Stony Brook Reservation, to the best of your knowledge at that point in the investigation, were those stills generated on the same date, July 23rd of 2013?
Yes, they were.
And at what point in the day?
They had been generated earlier in the day as part of the other investigations.
I just want to show you a series of three exhibits, three photographs actually that have been marked as exhibits in this case. Starting with exhibit number 25. Do you recognize that particular still photograph, sir?
Yes.
Do you know where that came from?
This photograph is from the Metro Credit Union located at 1071 Mass Ave.
And at least some point after your arrival on July 23rd of 2013, did you come into possession of that particular photograph?
Yes.
I want to show you this sequence of two photographs, sir. They've been marked exhibits number 18 and 19. And Detective Sheehan asked you if you recognize those two photographs.
Yes.
Okay. Do you recognize where those were generated from?
Yes.
And where were they generated from?
These photographs are from the Sovereign Bank located at 585 Columbia Road.
And at least with respect to one of those pictures, or possibly both, did you have either one or both of those pictures in your possession shortly after you arrived at the Stony Brook Reservation on July 23rd, 2013?
One of these specific photographs.
Which one, sir?
It was this photograph.
Exhibit number 18?
Yes.
Thank you. And the individual depicted in these two photographs was who, sir?
Amy Lord.
At some point, with respect to exhibits number 25 from the Metro Credit Union and exhibit number 18, the Sovereign Bank, did you say?
Yes.
Did you wind up utilizing either of these us why you were there shortly after your response on July 23rd, 2013.
Photographs taken at the same time from those banks were utilized, yes,
Okay. For what purpose?
for identification purposes.
And this is with respect to the woman on Bold Knot Path.
Yes.
Receive counsel, please.
Detective Sheehan, I want to show you a sequence of two photographs initially, and just ask you if you recognize what's depicted in those two photographs, sir.
I do.
And what do you see there?
Amy Lord, the deceased body of Amy Lord.
And with respect to those two photographs, sir, do they fairly and accurately depict the location of where she was found on July 23rd of 2013?
Yes.
Now, fair to say, you didn't have actual confirmation of any identity at that particular moment in time, correct?
No.
That happened later on?
Yes.
I would ask that these be marked as the next numbered exhibits, Your Honor.
Yes.
Exhibits 48 and 49, so marked, Your Honor.
I want to start, Detective Sheehan, what's been marked as exhibit number 48. You had testified a few moments ago about an area where some articles of clothing were found. You talked about a sneaker. What else did you mention?
The pants, which are wrapped around her right leg, a sock on her left foot. There were additional items of clothing recovered in the area of the sneaker, which aren't visible in this photograph.
But the color of the sneaker, is the color of the sneaker visible?
Yes.
And what color is that?
It was a bright orange.
Okay. And the articles of clothing that aren't at least visible in that particular photograph, were they in the same general area of the orange sneaker?
Yes, they were.
And were they later marked and collected?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would ask that these two photographs be published to the jury.
Yes.
just testified you made some observations about some injuries relative to the woman on the path. I want to show you this particular photograph right here. Ask you if you recognize what's depicted in that photograph, sir.
Yes.
And what do you see there, sir?
It's a close-up photograph of Amy Lord's face from the nose up.
Okay. And again, just asking you the same thing. You didn't have an actual identification of her on that particular date?
No.
When did the confirmation actually take place, sir?
On July 24th.
Relative to that particular photograph, it captures her eyes?
Yes.
And are they closed in that photograph?
Yes, they are.
Do you see, I want to direct your attention to the area above her head where her hair is matted to the ground. Do you see that area, sir?
Yes.
And what do you see there?
There's a pair of gold rim aviator-style sunglasses.
Okay. And what's the condition of the glasses, sir?
They're bent and broken with one of the lenses missing.
And is that a fair and accurate representation of generally how that item and how the area around her eyes appeared when you arrived on July 23rd of 2013?
Yes.
May this be marked as the next numbered exhibit, Your Honor?
Yes.
Exhibit 50 so marked, Your Honor.
May this be published, Your Honor?
Yes.
As part of crime scene response arriving at that particular location, are you aware if certain items were collected?
Yes.
And I want to show you two items that have been previously marked for identification, in this case F and G, starting with this particular photograph marked previously F for identification. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that to be?
Gold rim aviator-style glasses missing a lens.
Okay. And do you know where those came from?
Yes.
Where?
From the scene above the previous photograph wrapped up in the hair.
Okay. And those were recovered from the Stony Brook Reservation on July 23rd?
Yes.
May this be now entered into evidence, Your Honor, previously F for identification?
Yes.
Your Honor, what was previously F for identification is now Exhibit 51.
G for identification and its contents. Do you recognize what you have in your hands there, the box and its contents?
Yes.
What do you have?
The sunglasses that were recovered from the Stony Brook Reservation.
Okay. That were depicted in the previously marked exhibit?
Yes.
I would ask, and were these collected on July 23rd, 2013?
Yes, they were.
I would ask that this be moved into evidence, Your Honor, and the next numbered exhibit, previously G for identification.
Yes.
Your Honor, what was previously G for identification is now Exhibit 52.
I asked you some questions, Detective Sheehan, about your arrival there. You described the weather, the rain, and a tent that was set up. I want to show you this particular photograph right here. Ask you if you recognize that photograph, sir.
Yes.
And what do you see there?
So a photograph of investigators underneath the tent located in the middle of Bold Knot Path.
And approximately what time of the day is that photo taken at?
I would guess it was around 7 p.m.
Okay. And is it a fair and accurate representation of the lighting conditions of the area as they were on July 23rd of 2013 in that area?
Yes.
And what was the tree cover like if you were to stand in this area on Bold Knot Path?
It's very thick tree cover.
I would ask that this be marked as the next number, Your Honor.
Yes.
Exhibit 53 so marked, Your Honor.
May Exhibit 53 be published, Your Honor?
Yes.
want to direct your attention to one of the previously marked exhibits where you described an orange sneaker. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And ask you to take a look at this particular photograph, sir, and ask you if you recognize what's depicted there.
Yes.
And what do you see, Detective Sheehan?
The previously mentioned orange sneaker, as well as other items of evidence that were located and marked.
Okay. And directing your attention to, do you see just up above and to the left of the orange sneaker right in that area?
Yes.
And did you make observations of that area when you were there at Stony Brook Reservation on July 23rd of 2013?
Yes.
And what did you see in that particular area?
There were areas where the leaves and growth appeared to be disturbed.
In what way?
As if someone or something had been moving through there.
Okay. And was there an area on the ground where there were leaves and then an area where the ground was exposed?
Yes.
And is it captured in that particular photograph?
It is, yes.
And in this particular photograph, are there certain items that were marked and collected later on by the crime scene response unit?
Yes.
Okay. You said that someone else from the crime lab had also responded?
Yes.
I would ask that this be marked as the next number exhibit, Your Honor.
Yes.
Exhibit 54 is so marked, Your Honor.
Detective Sheen, can you see that okay?
Yes.
I put up on the monitor exhibit number 54. I just want to direct your attention to this particular area right here. See that?
And that was the area where leaves and the growth had been disturbed, as if there was something had passed through there violently.
Let me ask you this. How far from that particular sneaker in that area, how far was Amy Ward's body located?
Just a few feet.
And I'm going to strike the reference to something being dragged through an area violently. It's too speculative.
I had asked you a few moments ago about a photograph that you recognize as having been received from the Sovereign Bank.
Yes.
The female depicted in that photograph, was she wearing any articles of jewelry?
She was.
The female on the Stony Brook Reservation on Bold Knot Path, did you make any effort to note if she was wearing any articles of jewelry?
Yes, I did.
And what did you note in particular?
Most particular was a necklace, a thin gold-colored necklace with a medallion, which was, I observed in the still photographs from the Sovereign Bank, I observed a necklace consistent with that necklace.
In color and in shape?
Color, shape, size, yes.
Detective Sheehan, as part of what was going on Bold Knot Path, now into the early evening hours of July 23rd of 2013, were any steps taken in addition to some of the still photographs that you've seen to take actual video of the scene that evening?
Yes.
And you've had the opportunity to review that prior to testifying today?
Yes, I have.
I'm just going to reference, I'm going over to the monitor and referencing what's been previously marked as exhibit number 1. And I'm going to play what's marked the folder Anything Seen video.
Mr. Jury, let me just tell you so you know Carmen, the video lasts approximately 43 minutes, so you know the duration of the video. The video also depicts Ms. Ward's body for about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. The depictions of the deceased, as well as the photographs you've seen, are admissible for the purposes of showing what happened in an alleged incident. The purpose for their admission is not to inflame you or to overly draw upon your sympathies. So as I will tell you later on during the course of your deliberations, I give you final instructions, you have to decide cases based upon evidence, not based upon sympathy. So please try to look at the videos in a detached clinical manner as opposed to overly sympathetic manner. Yes.